Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you wanted to say something, contest an idea, conflict something, but because of the situation, maybe who was speaking to you, it might have been a supervisor or someone you really care about their opinion, it might have been someone of a higher rank, but as a result, you didn't speak your mind. You chose to keep things calm and not create conflict. While I understand that this is necessary sometimes for just to be able to get along with people, there's times when we go and do this behavior that is detrimental to ourselves and our well-being. And these particular times I call need for approval. We need to manage our need for approval and be willing to be disagreeable. Or in other words, sometimes it's just okay to be an asshole. While being diplomatic and patient with people is very important, blindly doing so for approval can be problematic. When I have a need for approval, I'll often not be as truthful, direct, or defend my ideas and beliefs as strongly as I may when I don't have a need for approval. In my career as a salesperson, need for approval is a horrible mental state and the cause of most sales failures. In sales, it's necessary to challenge the buyer's belief at times, and if you cannot do so because you're afraid of offending them, you will not sell most of the time. But a little bit of need for approval is okay. Healthy need for approval is the social grease that makes life pleasant, the kindergarten-type rules that allow us to be civil and considerate to each other. But when disrespect is offered more times than not, when someone assumes that my niceness equals weakness, I need to have the ability to be disagreeable. As conflict is not an agreeable moment or easy situation, I need to know that I cannot make all people happy all the time. And there will be times that what I say or do will upset some people, and I need to be okay with that. We were all small children at some point, and we were given very good societal instructions around accepting other people's differences, sharing resources, allowing other people to take turns, etc., etc. A lot of us have been led to believe that by being nice, which is a very important trait, the gesture will be reciprocated. And while it is reciprocated often, there are times when it isn't, and sometimes, even worse, niceness is taken advantage of. The need to be accepted is real. It is part of our evolutionary makeup as social creatures. It wasn't much more than about 150 years ago that being exiled from the village or tribe was a death sentence. We need others not only to procreate, but to survive and get the basics we need for both physical and emotional well-being. The threat of getting rejected is real and emotionally more painful today than what would actually be called for in today's age, as you can successfully live alone much easier than in previous times. Ironically, the more I've respected myself and not allowed other people to take advantage of me as a result of my willingness to be disagreeable, I have actually developed more meaningful and trusted relationships. So how does one overcome the need for approval? To start with, accept yourself for who you are. You do not have to explain, justify, or defend yourself or your ideas unless they're encroaching on someone else's rights. You are free to be who you are. If you can, create a time at the conclusion of your day to contemplate the conversations and interactions you had with people throughout the day and recognize the times that you exercised need for approval. If it was while being generally nice, mannered, and socially accommodating, congratulate yourself for being a nice person and reinforce the habit. But bad need for approval, times when we know we should have been disagreeable rather than seek approval, for example, when we were interacting with authority figures and did not say what needed to be said, or rather than tell someone they upset us, we swallowed and suppressed the feeling so that we could avoid offending anyone, or when we acted for approval from another person in a way that was disrespectful to ourselves or others. These are the kind of situations we want to take a closer look at. While replaying these situations in our mind's eye, we need to ask ourselves, who in me cares? In other words, what is it that keeps you from being disagreeable? Who was it that you were dealing with? And what meaning did you give that person and the situation that kept you from speaking your truth? To break this down in a more meaningful and objective way, I use a framework I call multiple eyes, and you can learn more about it from a video I'll post in the description. This framework allows me to look at myself from a third-person perspective with the idea of observation, not judgment, and allows me to observe myself in a way that helps me act in different ways in the future. When I ask, who in me cares, I'm asking about what part of my ego, what part of my sense of I cares about the situation or outcome that is currently happening. So much so, I feel pressure not to be who I am or say what I want to say. What I suggest is, while looking at the situation through the multiple I framework, try to recreate the feelings you were having at the time. Feeling happens in the body, and if you can recreate the feelings you were having that led to the thoughts that led to the bad need for approval, you can not only start to unravel the ineffective belief that you have that leads to this behavior, you can make a mental note and use this as a cue to pay attention to the times you feel this way again in the future. By recreating and replaying these situations and using the power of observation that the multiple I framework offers, you'll be able to decode some of the reasons why you chose to behave with need for approval behavior. For example, when I first entered the workforce, I remember that I'd have supervisors that seemed angry for little or no reason, much more often than they were pleasant. As a result, I would try to placate them by offering them good news and would seek their approval. It felt as if they were not approving of me, my presence, or my work. And I felt that I needed to validate my worthiness. I would go out of my way to behave a certain way, walking on eggshells to make sure I did not upset them and create conflict. As I started to break these situations down, I first realized that I had tension in my shoulders and an increased awareness of threat when they walked into the room. I then sat with these feelings for as long as I could to see what would come to mind as I did. I then discovered that these were the feelings that drove the emotions of fear, angst, and caution while speaking or dealing with these supervisor types. Feeling as if some type of validation would fix the emotions, I would then act in a particular way, placating, appeasing, and trying to win favor with the supervisor, which would work sometimes, but more often than not, I would find myself in the same situation, needing to placate, appease, or win favor all over again. Later that evening, I would relive and sit with the feelings as long as I could, and as a result was not only able to identify emotions that drove my negative behavior, I found I could sit longer with these same feelings. By reliving and sitting with these feelings, I increased my tolerance for the negative feelings and reduced the need to act on these feelings when they now occurred during different times in my life. In other words, I can act more often than react when I recognize my own need for approval. Remember, we are all stuck in the matrix, and we have to find our own way out. I hope what I share helps. Have a great day.